Alright, this is Scale Night 5. Tonight's going to be kind of different from the other nights because, as it turns out, I spent most of my day doing a bunch of research. Um, Yesterday, let me do something new here. So what I'm going to do instead is show you my script. This is something I haven't done yet. So maybe this will I'm doing this because I sort of told myself I'd be doing it. And I wanted to make sure I document this every night. So this is a big one. Hold on, I'm about to pour myself some tea. I want to get back to it at the end because it looks like that I might have to throw a wrench into some of my sort of grand hypotheses of the entire thing. But so this is the script that I'm working on, and so I did kill the um, I changed a few things, and so first of all, I tried. Is this up? Hold on, I don't know if this is updated. So all of this is running inside of an XNest on top of Firefox. So I got to do Control R to refresh it. All right, yeah, okay. Now it's the updated version. So I a few things I did. I went through. I made sure that all like the color was matching better. I killed the WTF thing, um, and I was thinking about combining these two. And so I haven't decided on that. I talked about that yesterday. Yeah, let me just go over some of the changes. Yeah, this one I'm thinking about killing. Um, let's see what else. Just on these ones alone. Um, I'm just scrolling through it to see what I did. Common space, simplest. Yeah, and this one I hadn't written on. And then I'll go back to the script I was just talking about. But I knew there was a few other things that I had changed. What else was it? Oh, it was neat. Okay, so this one, I talked about how I wanted to put this little thing on here. I got rid of NetBSD. I got rid of the dates down here. And I did some more research on this. And so that's part of the problem that I'm going to be going over. Yeah, so I combined it used to be Lucky User's Manual, and then that was one with this, and then I combined this into one. It's now a busy slide. I think that what I'll have to do is maybe resize this down a little bit, do a bit of work there. Still haven't decided to kill this one off or that one, although I think I should. Yeah, haven't done that, haven't done that, haven't done that. I mean, change the title there. But a lot of it because there were really two research things. First one I was looking at was the 1968. I was talking about how the software split into commercial software happened in 1968, but and those meetings did happen. All right, I found that out. But there's a couple other interesting things, and I'd have to let me see if I can some Avahi issues about trying to ping my laptop. I know it's on. Actually, I think it's still trying to get on a wireless thing that I can't connect to. So, excuse me for a second. Hold on. So locally, I use a wired network for my laptop just because the latency is better. But then I need to change that whenever I get home. So let's see. There was a few things. In fact, fuck it. I can. I don't have to be close about this. So I'm just gonna do it up here. I wonder if it's gonna work. So it's actually from Oh, it does. Okay, so I can SSH XC from local scale talk. Jeez. Yeah, and you can see some of the a couple interesting things I was doing recently. But let me open up my. This should, yeah, it should come all the way through. Fantastic. And let's see if I can just make sure that these are organized by date. Yeah, date. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Okay, cool. So I saw so there's a couple interesting sort of computer world things I saw. Um, oh yeah, I didn't even talk about that. So archive.org has Computer World, which is a weekly publication, starting in mid 1967, going up to 2014. And in order to see whether software or what there's a claim that software used to all be free. This is by Bruce Perens in a book called Open Source in 1999, and every single reference I find goes back to that book, and I just don't think it's well founded. There's another claim by Richard Stallman that says that all software used to come with source code, and that it was only sort of some change in the early 80s where it was like an object code only thing, and it was by default. But I also don't think that's true. Um, and so I think that both of those are erroneous statements. And there's another one that says that Bill Gates' open letter to hobbyists in 1976 about Altair Basic and SneakerNet, as I went over, was also part of the beginning to the private software movement, and I also don't think that that's true. I think that the commercial software market has been with us for a long, 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 long time. Oh yeah, here. So here is 19. Here's some evidence for it that I need to integrate somewhere. So this is 1968, and when we go down here, oh yeah, let me just try to be more specific. So May 1968. Then there's an article. Oh, come on. Oh, you motherfucker. Just scroll down there and stay the fuck down there, right? So, 11 independent software firms, which with sales of more than $100 million annually, have formed a trade association to handle common problems such as competitors with not-for-profit organizations. So, this, at least 1968, says that commercial software was at least $100 million industry with at least 11 companies that were software only. It was this thing called the Association of Independent Software Companies. And I in a course of formation for some 14 months, which makes it go back to about 1966 at least, I looked at that. There's very little documentation on this, and it has a couple. It has a couple firms down here. I should probably search these firms. But yeah, and so commercial software, there's evidence of it being a very robust market in, let's do an inflation calculator. Inflation calculator. And if I do that with $1968, and do 100, I can do the rest. So yes, about $1 billion, which is quite a bit. So that's one of the records. And let's see, there's another one I found over here. Oh, that was just funny. Our desktop has a hyphen. That was just silly. That's got nothing to do with research though. This is another interesting one that its first patent is issued for software in 1968. So there is another sort of false reference that says, source code before 1980 something was all open source, blah 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 blah, and they're trying to paint this picture that sort of services their narrative of some kind of lost great past, but it's a very common myth. Things were better back in the 50s or whatever it is, like trying to revitalize some great past. But it usually doesn't turn out that way. It's just part of myth building. So this was an interesting one. And there's also a very fascinating quote here. I think it was down here that says, oh yeah, it says, programs were just mathematics and you cannot patent math, which I think is pretty wonderful. So they're saying that, they don't really understand what the implications are, but this happened again in June. So let's see, what else did I find out? But is it software? Oh, here's one. So they had a special advertiser section just for people who sold commercial software. So there's two real possibilities here. First of all, there could have been the assumption that distributed software either had come in source only, or had come in binary only, or had come in binary plus source. And it could have been so assumed that people just didn't list it. A telltale sign would be if they had a separate pricing sheet for binary and source, or if they had separate prices for different kinds of computers or something like that. So none of these things say something like source code included. If it did, then that would have set the precedent that source code is not included. Or if it said something like, I don't know. So I was trying to find out what the dominant paradigm was at the time without any kind of assumptions going in. But none of these things really sort of suggest it. So even this one, they would say, oh, it's implemented on IBM 1440 8K, and then, and it says like what kind of computer it ran on. But it doesn't actually say, proceed COBOL. So it says, but this one is a package to look at COBOL source programs. So it's a debugging tool. So that doesn't count. But like all of these things, it's not. I can't really. So BAL is a programming language, but just saying that something was written in BAL, I mean, like, does that necessarily mean that the source code was shipped with it? I think that maybe the answer might be yes, but then there's another. There are some reports of people saying stuff like the vendor can't fix some of the bugs we find, and if you had the source code, then you could ostensibly fix it yourself. So, and they're like, oh, the documentation sucked. Well, if you had the source code, maybe you'd be able to do it yourself. Although, whether the source code was machine code or not is another question, or assembler, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it was well commented. So it's really sort of not. I don't really have clarity on this, on whether you could get access to it or not. So here's another software for sale, another listing of it. Let's just see if there's anything else in this thing that I wanted to focus on. So brokers find ways. No. It's just more of this thing. Then RCA's losses continue. What am I looking at here? Oh yeah, teaching prisoners how to code. Here's 1968. It's been around for a long time. I thought that was kind of interesting. Oh yeah, and then I added copyright notices to it. So I went into that in order to resolve some of the questions that I had, and I guess those are still technically unresolved. But I could say that commercial software, predated 1968 pretty substantially. If it looks like that, people selling commercial software, not bespoke or ad hoc or anything like that, had a billion, or the top 11 had the $1 billion market cap in 1968, and it had been forming since 1966. So that really defies the idea that there was free source Valhalla prior to Bill Gates' greedy hands or whatever people like to claim. So let's just go back to the script over here. So I'll have to integrate that. Oh yeah, and there's something, so let's just see what else. A lot of these things I just haven't done. So because, there should be a comma. Because I had to do I read 100 issues of Computer World. I mean, that's just, and I read a couple textbooks too. Or sorry, not really textbooks, but those things of like, the Linux Bible Unleashed, from like 1993 and 94, like some of the earliest ones, because of what it says at the top. And I'll get up there. So let's see what else I've done. So essentially, it's stuff like this, the bold things. It's not really I want to lie about the chart. I want to go and do some research because I want to see if my chart is incorrect. Right. So all of this bold stuff was stuff that I wrote last night on my video, a typing program, especially by the burden of the disease. Right. So this was a dynamic that I really wanted to explore a little bit more. This is a dynamic of burden to consumer and producer. Right. Is that so if I had, let's say, given you, I don't have media around me, but oh yeah, I do. So this is just a network adapter. But let's just say, if I'd release you software on this, right? This is pretty easy to do the installation from. But if I had released, like, I don't know, on paper tape, it might have been hard. Or if I had released software in source only, right, and that required you to do a complicated compilation. So the idea is that there is consumer burden along with the producer, or consumer cost, I should say, along with the producer cost. And maybe, I don't know how those would work together, because I would say that high consumer cost is actually more burdensome than high producer cost. But I don't know. It's a good question. I never really looked at it that way, and all these crazy books over here that I have about marketing and business of software, I never saw anybody really touch upon that. So, I've probably read about 30 or 40 books on that topic, and I can't say I've ever seen it. So there's probably scholarly work about it somewhere, as I found recently. There's stuff that I haven't seen before. So this one, describe the bazaar model can be seen as flat cathedrals, hollow bazaars are flat. I really like that, and so I need to implement that back over. GNU issues, right? Firm-based development, which is it's not really firm-based. I mean, maybe it is. No, it's cathedral-based software development, which you can also call firm-based software development. But let's not introduce too many terms. Here it is. Get more detail about this. That's what I spent all day looking at. Mentioned there's a BSD and various licensing within this chart, which is why the Unix is in the square. Right. Right. Yeah, that's a crazy chart. And maybe I need to make that chart a little bit more sensible, because right now it's like really unsensible. It just looks complicated, which is kind of cool, but it's also illegible. So maybe what I will need to do, it's from a project called the Unix Timeline, is that this thing, you can't read it from afar. You can only see which one is it? There's a Unix. Here's a Levenes. So here's the guy that did it. There's a number of mistakes in it, and I actually emailed him. He said, I'll fix it next time. It's kind of cool that I was able to find him real quick. But let's just try this. I'll show you what I mean. Oh, I want to do the A4 one. Oh, fuck it. I'll just do this one. So our focus was like around this time period. And that's approximately what I was doing over here. 86. Yeah. It'd be much cooler if I could actually get the damn thing right. I had done that. Is it this one? No. Oh, plotter's what I want. Sorry. Yeah, and so I had snapped off some of this stuff, and then I had basically just done this, and this is where this graphic comes from. But you know the reality is that if you zoom in, you can see this is commercial. Let's see, maybe make sure I'm gonna be like in the same window, so I'm not like, but, you know, I've got two 4K monitors here, and there's actually a lot more. So it's commercial. Mount Xenu is commercial. That was found like 82 or 83. Seismo, I don't know. That's MIPS OS, RISC OS. That's for Acorn. 4.3 BSD. That was not. Sun OS is for the Sun OS machines. Unix time sharing systems. That's off of AT&T. Yarix is SGI. GNU Tricks. Not really. MIT Tricks and GNU were different. Yeah, there's a bunch of sort of questionable things like that. Plan 9 was definitely open. So yeah, it's like an AUX for Apple, and here's Minix over here. Oh, you can't see it because it's blocked by this thing. There's Minix. So it's almost like what I want to do is there's really not enough space to put all of these. Maybe what I can do is just take a snapshot, like start here. Mock is free. Yarix is not. Down to Minix. So basically, it would look like this. From you can't see that. From mock down to Minix. That's still too much to show. That's still just effectively garbage. Yeah, I guess just keep it as is. There's really no way I can do it unless I want to like do color coordination or something weird like that. Anyway. Right, Red's ready. Right. Hourglass. So the past 2 nights, I referenced this hourglass thing, which I haven't actually shown yet. So I should probably show, at least for our purposes here. I think I did it on this machine. So I've got a bunch of computers here, and basically I just have scale directories locally, and they all have their own kind of concept of assets and things like that. So it makes it kind of a mess. I could do things over the network, but you know, I'm not always here, and there's other issues. So, oh gosh, this is the chart right here. The idea is that you have assembly, FPGA, bytecode, these like very sort of low-level tools. Then you have some very high-level tools, but then these high-level tools become inappropriate, and so then you need to find the right level. And you could say that the Unix shell or that sort of the Unix principles have an opinion on what the right level is, and maybe VMS and other types of things have a different opinion on that, which is why it's contentiously debated territory. And the question, and I think this is a completely valid way of looking at the world, or programming languages, or anything, or basically any tool in general. Let's say we have, I don't know, let's say I'm trying to cut something, right? I could use, a sharp rock at the bottom, or let's say just a kitchen knife, or I could have like I don't know, a very specific apple peeler, which is only good on an apple. And if I have like a non-apple, then it's actually very difficult to start cutting things with it. So you want to have a very nice sort of general purpose kitchen knife, right? That's the most useful tool, is the thing that's in between. That's the one that's going to be the least amount of effort. And sure, the very, very specific apple peeler I could still do things with. I could still, do the knife things with it. It's just a lot of labor. So that's why it's right there. So yeah, I like the chart. I just don't know if I can integrate it well. Anyway. So what else though? This is one last. Right. I don't know why this is. So usually when I say in bold, it means I want to expand about it. I think I have to go back to what I said last night and find out why that's in bold. Usually it's pretty clear, like describe the fucking chart, right? Right. And this is now, no, this is now one. And see, I'm saying remove. And then this should be Chekhov's gun-like. And part of it was that so I guess now we can look at the top one. So when you look at Linux Journal from, first of all, ACM has ACM Linux Journal 1994 or so. So you can find stuff like this. This is Linux Journal 1994, and they have all of them. And so you can you can just go through and read each one of them. And let's just do that. Because I can do Linux Journal, and there's like an ISP one. Oh God, you know what I hate about is that they just love to make it to like start ignoring terms on you. So that's modern Google. Like, oh, that's a very specific thing that you're looking for. You could never actually be wanting something super specific. Let's go super general. No, I'd have to go find in my notes. But essentially, there are a bunch of sort of gun-ho things that made me do this slide. Where is it? This is a core to the entire idea, is this one right here. And so the idea is that it was right place, right time, and it was really needed in order to support these things. And I had assumed that the Apache HTTPD was older than it was. It actually started in 95, which was much later than I had assumed. And before that, it was something called the, what is it? It's like the NCSA web server. It's some four-letter acronym. I think it's NCSA web server. Let me see if I can find it. Oh no, it's by TBL. So whatever. So the idea was that if this is true, let's just go on here. So you'd find tools to run ISPs or tools to run web servers or any of those things. And so what I did was I then looked into, in fact, now is the time that I can actually bring up the stuff on, where did I look at that at? I looked at that at HAL. Downloads, Linux. Yeah, so here's some like really early versions of Slackware and Yugadrizzle and like there's an ISO now that I forgot I didn't have access to. because it's still doing that, like -3 or something. Ah, I was looking up something else. Yeah, info magic Linux CD-ROM. There's one. That's another one I want to look at. So sudo su mount mount info magic mount. I don't know. What do I have? Sure, floppy. Who cares? CD mount floppy. Let's see what we have. And I didn't find a lot of networking stuff on these older CD-ROMs or distributions. And also I looked at a number of books on archive.org, these Linux books from like, the early 90s. And I was like, they talk about web servers, they talk about ISPs, and they really didn't. So there's not really a good foundation for that hypothesis. I can't really support it. Let's just see what we see for net. So Sunset was a really sort of early repository for Linux stuff. So netpbm, that's an image format. This is my first way, netconfig, right? That's a Slackware thing. Some how-to. We have hardware, newsprint. And none of this stuff is like how to set up a web server or anything like that. This is all desktop stuff. This is all sort of, so to go back to our chart beforehand, it was this one. We're all into these two, and we're not here. And maybe it's supportive of it, and maybe you could say like 94, 95 is when it got to this and that. But then this is a poor analysis, because by then FreeBSD and NetBSD were already pretty mature and capable software at the time. So the time window had closed between Linux's true head start and bizarre style NetBSD being developed. Because if you go back up to where is it? This one, and you could say that, okay, so let's presume that only adoptive, relatively permissive, free Unix-like operating systems had a chance of success, right? Just presume that. So you have Minix down here, which is, I call it hesitant or cathedral-like, and it's more restrictive than it should be. So like that's out, right? We can't use that one. Then we have 386 BSD, which is more permissive, but it's still a cathedral-like design, so that's out. But up here NetBSD, which was part of Net2 and done by a bunch of people who wanted to have, it's actually BSD 386 from BSDI is what they used after that company kind of collapsed. And so it's not directly 386 BSD, but they released it in 1993. So by that time, you have to come up with a different hypothesis if you're saying that both this and this is fine. I want to, one of the things I haven't gone through is I haven't gone through and looked at this thing compared to oh, whoa, look at that, we got archives of mailing list archives, which are pretty nice. It's always good to have. Sunsight, NetHack, this is a game, GCC, kernel, libs, logos. That's fun. PCX, how fun. Yeah, so I guess I need to go through all of this and find out. But, so there is another potential explanation for this. Let's see if I can find. a nice. Oh look, there's some stuff like that. Let me see if there's any good images. Cool, why not? I can just use this one. So in the world of studying the far right, there's something called the alt-right or the right-wing pipeline. So essentially, the idea is that you have the the soft stuff, the Fox News, and then that would eventually get you over to some, I don't know, really hateful and sort of fascist rhetoric. So and not everybody does that, and so essentially. This is kind of like any type of convergence graph. You might get 1 million people here, and then it goes down to 100,000 and 10,000. Right? And then getting over here, it's very few people get all the way over there. To anti-Semitism and things like that. So what you could claim maybe is that NetBSD is a more hardcore version of Unix, and that Linux is this part of the the Unix pipeline, if you will. This theory could have legs if you could see. I haven't done any diagrams for this, so it's just hard to say that. But you have to sort of I don't know, I'm in OBS, so I can sort of make this a bit bigger for now. So the idea is, in fact, I should probably have, I've got paper right here, and do I have a pen? Somehow I've got yeah, here's one. That's what I can do. So there's a pencil. So the idea is that there is like a Windows DOS to Linux to be, yeah. So this is something I've been, oh shit. This is my new model, and this is a big game changer if I can find evidence for this. But I've been around this scene since maybe 1996, so this is some of my early memories, and I think that this maps out right. So essentially, what we're gonna do is do something like let's just say NetBSD, and then up here we're gonna have things like HPUX, Solaris, and then eggs, and then that's one funnel. And then another one we're going to say is 386 BSD, Linux, and let's just say Minix. And I'm going to say that we can go there, and then you can go there, and then to there. But here's the important thing. Is that we're doing DOS, Windows, Mac and Mac OS. This is classic Mac OS, of course. Is this? So let's just say that how do I do this? Let's just say that this thing existed, okay? Maybe if I turn off this light, this will be better. Let me see. Generally speaking. All right. Oh, fucking bitch. So, okay, so let's just say that this existed. Essentially what I'm claiming here is, for NetBSD, let's just say that that's also FreeBSD. So we can also call it free. And let's just say that there's also maybe ERX. So let's just say that this is the early world where, NetBSD and FreeBSD are the hardest core Unixes. and then Linux is kind of the opener. But the reason that you'd actually end up getting more people using Linux is because the first part, DOS, Windows, and Mac OS, that's if I was to then graph these out another way, I could say this: 99% of users, right? And so I could say 99% of users are these three over here, and then they go to Linux, and then let's just say that this, and then I don't know, maybe let's just say, I don't know, 5% of that goes to the next one, and out of these top operating systems, let's just say, I don't know, even if I said 50% go down there, then, oh yeah, but how many of the 99% go to Linux? Let's just say it's 1%. So I'm just making these numbers up. But the whole point is that if you say 1% of 99% versus 50% of 1%, right? Does that make any sense? Yeah, so even under these conditions, if we were to say something like this accounts for 99%, but it's not really. It's much higher than that, actually. It's probably something like DOS, Windows, and Mac OS in the early 90s. It's probably 99.8 or 9%, probably. And this is probably like 1 out of 1,000, perhaps. So because of that, when we're doing percentage of percentages, the funnel here is like the alt-right pipeline, while Linux is more like the Fox News, if you will. So then it ends up getting more people to do the what the hell is that thing? To do this engine, this problem solution integration engine. So that could be another part of it. I have to find strong evidence for it. I think so. What would supportive evidence look like? That's the next question that I need to look into. There's really a few. So first of all, you'd have to say, so there's things like PCMag, which was basically run by Microsoft, and they sat on Linux for like a number of years. But like those types of sort of mainstream PC things where they really discounted non-Windows based setups. So if you look at those, and if when they're mentioning alternatives, they're only mentioning Linux. So if they mention exclusively Linux, and kind of ignore the BSDs, then that would be supportive of it being the first step in a pipeline. Okay. If it looks like that, if I looked at these archival posts from, let's say, from various OSs, such as Linux and the BSDs, whatever else I find, and I grep for people coming from Windows, grep for DOS Windows, and then I see. No, I think I also have to, because if I go back to this one, right, and then I'd also have to look for things like Coherent, which is a big one, SCO, Minix, all of the popular sort of things back then, and then see if this. So essentially, it'd be somebody saying something like, "Hi, I'm just trying 386 BSD for the first time, and in SCO Linux, SCO Xenix, I was able to do blah 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 blah." And that tells me that they're coming from SCO Xenix, right? Or they say, "Oh, does it have something like this, like I do in Windows?" And that would establish that connection. So then that could tell me whether that pipeline, had existed for that particular human being. And then I need to have another piece of evidence, which would be literature that supports the transition and fosters it. Supports and fosters the transition. So if I find something that's dive into Linux in 21 days or whatever, and then it says, and it has all of these things similar to Windows. We have FVWM95 and blah 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 blah, right? And it tries to sort of pull Windows users in. Then that would support this, especially if I find sort of equivalent literature on I just use the BSDs because that's the only ones I'm thinking of right now. And instead, it's stuff like as you can see, the microkernel architecture is similar to the one I'm planning out, and use all this technical jargon, and it has absolutely no it isn't throwing out a line to people coming from Windows or DOS or anything like that. Then that would also support this kind of thing of saying oh no, we're just for people who are super familiar. Then we have this being strong support, and that would mean that this, which September 1983 will go down in that history, but I was looking at 94, and it looks like 94, 95. There's still a window there that I need to close. And if this is there, then that closes that window. Then I have a really strong case. So that's really why I hadn't integrated all of those things, because I'm back in a research mode and doing this contemplation, and I'll need to go into all those archives and read up and find out a little bit more. It's 15 days until I have to do this, so I really got to stick with it. But yeah, I'm trying to make this productive, and just going over the thing again wasn't a good use of my time right now. But hopefully this is, and I'm going to try to continue to do these updates every night. So that's what I've been working on, and that's it. All right, nice and short.